Yes, you guessed it, we've got even more Assassin's Creed Valhalla information to go over. I only did a news roundup the other day, so I know it might be surprising that we've got another one. But we're less than a month away from the game's launch and it feels like the marketing has just hit full f***ing swing. So enjoy yet another news roundup in which we talk about all of the new information that we have. Or more accurately, all the new information that I can find. You know how it is usually with Assassin's Creed, information just gets everywhere. So let's get cracking because this news isn't going to cover itself. First things first, we have the PC requirements for the game. Now, unlike some games' PC requirements, which just tell you the minimum and recommended specifications that are required to run a game, this explains what that means and also tells you what you'll need if you want to run it at the higher settings. I think it's actually really useful and we'll go through that information now. So from the top down, here's what's going to be listed: the average performance, the graphics settings, the graphics card, the processor, the memory, the operating system, and then the storage. The minimum requirements will see you running the game at 1080p 30fps on the low preset. And what it requires here is an AMD R9 380 4GB or an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 960 4GB, an AMD Ryzen 3 1200 3.1GHz or an Intel Core i5 4460 3.2GHz. It wants 8GB of RAM in dual channel mode. I'm not sure why they put the dual channel mode there. I don't know what difference it'll actually make, but it is always wise to ensure that if you're running 8GB of RAM, that instead of having one single stick of 8 gigs, it's probably better to have 2 sticks of 4. But if you're thinking about gaming on PC seriously, then there's a very good chance that you already know that. Operating system it requires is Windows 10 64-bit, 50GB on a hard disk drive, though solid state drive is recommended. Recommended settings will give you 1080p 30fps on the high preset, and wants an AMD RX 570 8GB or an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 6GB, AMD Ryzen 5 1600 3.2GHz or an Intel Core i7 4790 3.6GHz. It suggests the same memory and operating system as the minimum, but recommends that you install the game on a solid state drive. For 1080p 60fps on the high preset, the game will require an AMD Vega 64 8GB or an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 8GB. Processor-wise, it will want an AMD Ryzen 7 1700 3GHz or an Intel Core i7 6700 3.4GHz. The rest of the stuff is the same as before. Now on to what it refers to as the enthusiast requirements, which gets you 1440p 60fps on the very high preset. Here you'll be wanting to run an AMD RX 5700 XT 8GB or an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 Super at 8GB. You'll want an AMD Ryzen 5 3600X 3.8GHz or an Intel Core i7 8700K 3.7. And you'll want 16GB of RAM, again suggesting that you have 2 sticks of 8 as opposed to just 1 stick of 16. The operating system and storage requirements stay the same. And of course, for ultra settings at 4K 30fps, you will want an AMD RX 5700 XT 8GB or an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 at 8GB, paired with an AMD Ryzen 7 3700X 3.6GHz or an Intel Core i7 9700K 3.6GHz. And the rest of the requirements remain the same as the enthusiast list. For extra information, the game requires DirectX 12, will feature an uncapped frame rate, has in-depth customization options, hybrid input, a multi-monitor and widescreen support, and will feature an in-game benchmark for performance analysis. So now PC gamers should have a fair idea of whereabouts their machine stands with regards to how well it will be able to handle Assassin's Creed Valhalla. If you're a PC gamer planning on playing this game on your machine and you're still not quite sure where it stands, drop a comment with your relevant specs and I'll do my best to help. But I will say there are people who know more about this stuff than I do. Just the same, I'm happy to do my best. If the PC requirements aren't relevant to you, then you can switch your brains back on now, as now we're actually going to talk about the game itself. Firstly, a new 7-minute deep dive trailer was released, which went over a lot of information that we already knew and/or covered, such as the settlement and certain aspects of the combat, which the trailer made look incredibly cool, I will say, but we already know that stuff is incredibly deep, so it's not exactly news. We got to see a lot of the skill trees in this as well, and it does look like it's a massive page just full of stuff, but again, it's not something we haven't seen before. before. We learn that as we explore the world of Valhalla, we will come across legendary weapons and gear, including the legendary sword Excalibur, which you may know from Arthurian legend as the sword wielded by King Arthur. I believe in Assassin's Creed lore, Excalibur is a sword of Eden, and it would appear as if, judging by the shot in the trailer, that we find it in some sort of tomb. Since it's a piece of Eden, I'd imagine it's wrapped up in some form of First Civ story, and provided it has a purpose for existing, that's perfectly fine by me. When it comes to the gender choice, we know we can of course change this at any point during the game, but there's also an option to let the animus decide, which essentially means at some points you may be female Eivor, at other points you may be male Eivor, based on which fits best for some narrative related animus reason. I don't know what it will be, but I do believe there will be some form of explanation for it in the game. Let's just hope that they can do this sort of tricky approach justice. The trailer ends by telling us that this world is only the beginning. For example, as we know, Valka the seer will make us drink some herbal thing that essentially allows us to venture to Asgard and other Norse mythological places like that. But this isn't the only place other than England we can visit, as the game will also include Norway and what's hinted at as the New World, which I can only presume is part of North America, as we know that Norse peoples did at least venture that far west. I don't know how big this space will be. Will it be a set piece or will it be an entire world area? Hopefully it'll be a world area of some sort. Not too big as to take away from the open world space that is England or the Norway segment, but big enough to feel like coming here was worthwhile. As great as this trailer is, it's now time to move on from it, as for the most part it just goes over information we already know. Moving on is a couple of cool gameplay features. First, Eivor can meditate to pass the time, and also there will be an option in the menus to toggle guarantee assassinate, which basically means that if you have that enabled, every time you go to assassinate a target, it will kill them, as opposed to just chipping a little bit of their health away and making you feel like, what was the point? As cool as that is, I feel like it could take away from a huge aspect of the skill trees, but I don't care, I'm enabling that for that OG feel. We also got some new screenshots, showcasing some different aspects of the game. For example, this shot here appears to show North America, as we can see some Native American looking structures here not too dissimilar to those that we saw in Assassin's Creed 3. By the looks of this shot, it could be a fully realised world area for us to explore, so I do look forward to that. We also have a shot of Asgard with the gigantic tree that is Yggdrasil in the background, a screenshot of a boss fight which I believe to be with one of the daughters of Lear, specifically I think Cordelia, but don't quote me on that, I can't remember, at least not for sure. Here's Eivor and Sigurd in an encampment with a few other characters which I believe to be a part of the arc, which was a part of the 6-hour demo that I played a few days back. A boss fight with a giant wolf with a mouth that is stupidly long, which is obviously one of those mythological elements, which means that in this shot Eivor is high. It's believed this monstrous wolf is Fenrir from Norse mythology. I'd imagine this will be a boss fight not too dissimilar to that of the giant snake in Assassin's Creed Origins, so it's calm. Here's a shot of that mad character, Ivar the Boneless, who we were introduced to in the 7-minute deep dive trailer, and you can see here that the faces look a lot better than they did in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and more importantly, they look a lot better than they did in the promotional content from back in July. And from what I've played, for the most part, the faces do look to have improved for sure. I believe this shot is of Jotunheim. I apologise if I pronounced that horribly wrong, but I believe this is where we will run into the ice giant characters as seen in the promotional content released by IGN. They're basically big blue people. I'm sorry I can't use any footage here, those videos appear to be blocked in the UK for whatever reason. Here's a shot of picturesque snowy Norway, which is probably where the game shall begin, and it looks glorious, that's all there is to say there. Here's a picture with Eivor on horseback and Stonehenge in the distance, again representing how lovely the game could look, though it is always worth remembering that somehow the game always looks better in the promotional screenshots than it actually does when it launches. Here's Eivor jumping about some city-like area, wearing a white hood, which I guess is nice Assassin's Creed iconography. Seals. I don't know what else you want me to say. Seals. Or are they sea lions? I don't know, I'm not David Attenborough, you tell me. And there you go, those were some seriously lovely screenshots. And I think that brings us to the end of this video. Of all this new information, the thing that I'm most looking forward to there is the prospect of exploring North America once more. Though I'd imagine this is a bit further north than the setting of Assassin's Creed 3 around Newfoundland area in Canada. But what would I know, 30 seconds of Googling doesn't make me an expert. Let me know what has you excited down in the comments. If anything, of course. So thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and all that wonderful stuff. That would be fantastic, and with any luck I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, take care and goodbye.